Hello, everybody. Andy Jacob here with the DotCom Magazine Business Spotlight Series. And we have a great show today. You know, you watch the show all the time. And of course, we love speaking to experts, people who have a specialty in a certain area, a certain space, who've developed and created a business around that expertise. And what they specialize in, of course, is always creating huge value for their clients. And we've been able to invite one of those people on the show today. His name is Mr. Vic Simianu, and Vic is the CEO of Sphinx Strategies. And his expertise and specialization is in a very, very interesting area. It's one that many of us think about, many of us visit almost every day. It's in the pharmacy business. He's a pharmacy consulting group, a technologist. He has a great tech stack, of course, and we're going to talk about that with some of his other iterations out of Sphinx Strategies, but he's a great entrepreneur. Vic, welcome to the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series today.
Thank you so much for having me, Andy. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. We spoke briefly on the phone yesterday. You were so busy talking to clients and pharmacies and building, yourself as one of the nation's most trusted independent specialty pharmacy consulting groups, and we're very excited to have you on the show. Before we get started, we have a lot of questions. Let's pull the lens back to 30,000 feet. Tell us about Sphinx Strategies. Say that 3 times real quick, and then we're going to go.
All right. So, no, thank you so much, Andy. What we do is build high performers across the nation. Sphinx Strategies is really a group that focuses on building high performers from the ground up. A lot of consulting groups really focus from the top down, and where we think we add a lot of value, and we've created a lot of history within our clients of whether they're unicorn valuation startups, or exit multiples that will make your eyes pop. We're very proud of our clientele and taking them from zero to hero. So what we do is very, very much focused on 2 things. We focus on operations and we focus on business development. So Sphinx Strategies was started out of really doing a lot of accreditation and operations compliance work for a lot of our clients. And from that, what happened as we built these groups across the nation, it was almost like the final scene in Finding Nemo, if you will. They all got out, they spend the entire movie trying to get out of the aquarium once they're out in the ocean, and they're all bobbing, they're all looking at each other and saying, now what? And so basically, hey, they would come back to us to say, how can we build our business? How can we get more access to limited distribution drugs? How can we get better contracting? How can we leverage, some of the quality and some of these really cool things that you've helped put us through? So that's where we started a couple of our other sub brands, and that's how Sphinx has really become one of the top in the nation for handling specialty pharmacy, infusion center, and provider group build outs. So we really focus on making sure that the patients get to see the doctors that they want, they get to see the pharmacies that they want, and that we keep that quality high. So blood pressure low, quality high is always the intent.
I love that. Blood pressure low, high quality. And of course, you have a unique selling proposition. I mean, you've been able to provide double and triple digit ROI to your clients, and you call it this bleeding edge expertise. I think that's an interesting choice of word. And you really offer your clients disruptive approaches really towards success. And I wanted to talk about it a little bit. Many of us are familiar with going into the big pharmacy, the Walgreens or the CVS or something like that. But let's talk about, the other pharmacies, the other types of pharmacies that are out there that are doing such a great job and able to really sort of leverage your expertise and solutions to put them in the position to really have a successful business.
Absolutely. And so we hear that pain point across the nation, right? There's been, when we first got into the business, it was about a $60 billion business, and now it's north of, $800 billion in the US. And so it's getting harder and harder for these independents to say that they can compete with those big guys. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of the the news articles, and there's plenty of independents that are broadcasting their struggle with what's going on in the current landscape. And what we do is really focus on that reverse vice solution, to make sure that we drop the bottom line, make sure that they're efficient, build out those KPIs to make sure that they can leverage those, and then put that narrative to work within the pharma groups, within the payer groups, self-funded plans, TPAs, managed care organizations, and the PBMs themselves, to make sure that those independents can still keep their patients. So in terms of negotiating power or cost of goods strategy or data programs or limited distribution drug access that'll make or break whether or not that provider will continue to use that pharmacy or that patient will still continue to use that pharmacy. A lot of these independents don't know how to put that together. And so we kind of guide them through, step one and then help them, take that burden off their shoulders. So it's not just them building out, what we know how to build out. And so there's a lot of different, if you can think about the mixer board on the production, in a production studio, there's a lot of things that the independents can use to try and amplify what their specific niche is. And that's what we found has been very successful. In terms of an independent just trying to be a one-size-fits-all approach, it's not necessarily the most effective way anymore. So we really try to build out the best of the best and those high performers in specific disease states. So whether it's neurology or immunology, pulmonology, and hematology, hemophilia, those types of bleeding disorders, those take a very, very high level of patient care and white glove service. And they need to know that if they're going to want to fight the fight. And so some people don't want to fight that fight. And we're here to make sure that we elevate the best of the best.
Yeah, I love it. Are there economies of scale? I mean, people wonder about that all the time. If I go into a big pharmacy, are they able to buy medication at a lower price than, let's say, a smaller independent pharmacy, or is it pretty static across the board, and are the prices sort of fixed no matter if you buy 1 million doses or 1,000 doses?
Well, that's a great question, and that can bring itself to the market in a couple different ways. One, of course, there's economies of scale for large pharmacies that can have negotiating power on their own. The way we've been able to kind of approach that with a small independent is through our Spring platform. So where we can aggregate volume and have group purchasing power around some of those medications. Suddenly, an independent is much more powerful than going against a CVS to be able to at least get to that next tier of volume or to that negotiating volume level with pharma or with those other groups. And so we really try to focus on again, what are those major pain points? What are those top medications that the pharmacy is having an issue with, and then put innovative programs and take the pain away from them to be able to really fill that niche for them. So we aggregate where we can so we can compete, and we found that our pricing is very competitive. And so now there's a lot of different tactics that some of the larger pharmacies use, and we can get into that later and on in the show if you would like. But we try to be as tactical as possible with what they can do, and make sure that they're driving that value to the provider and to that patient. A lot of times if they can describe why or show why within the clinical data or within their data programs of why they're the best of the best, then the broader groups, pharma is willing to negotiate a little bit more and bring them under their wing. So that's what we try to do if we can't fix economies of scale. But there's a lot, going back to the mixing board, there's a lot of things that we can do to help drop pricing of pharmaceutical drugs. And that's where, we see a lot of value to plans, payers, providers, and our pharmacies themselves.
Yeah, I love it. I love this idea of this Spring platform that you've revolutionized. I mean, it makes all the sense in the world that you have a program or a platform or a system where you combine sort of the purchasing power of all your clients under one umbrella, and you're able to give them some great sort of ROI. Is that the way it all works?
Correct. So, well, it's been a innovative model that we've tried to do, and I think where we overlap well and why it drives value is because our folks are the best of the best, right? So if we can keep our plans happy, our providers happy, uh, the Medicaids of the world happy, by finding a really high performer within their state, magically they're not having to, put state funds into a group that, is going to be fulfilling those medications from out of state. So, if you can think about, why we want to build out their muscle and why we offer the services we do is because we're all going to be patients one day. And if I travel to, Florida or New York or California, even though I'm here in Indiana, we want to be able to go to the best of the best, and we want access to those medications, from the best of the best. We want that best care. And so when we can quantify that in data, it really goes a long way. And so I think it's an innovative approach because we don't own the actual pharmacies. It's not a franchise model. But the model is really based on value. If we're not driving value, we're not going to be, the right partner there. And so I think we found a way to work with people that are aligned within that perspective of population health, and keeping their patients and providers very happy.
Yeah, it makes sense. And you mentioned data. I know you love data. I know your team loves data solutions. You have
That's right.
Information, I'm going to call it group or division as well, that sort of specializes in sort of generating disruptive technologies in your vertical. Let's talk about that a little bit. I think it's called
Sure.
Siltos or Siltos, but it's a very unique and interesting idea you've come up with.
Sure. So one of the pain points that a lot of pharmacies have is providing data. Again, if they're a small group or if they're an independent group, there's a couple issues that they have with providing that data. They may not have, the world's biggest budgets for software developers, but they're also handcuffed by, what platforms they use. So while margins are shrinking, for reimbursement, we also see the need. We found the need that we need to make this part easier for our clients. And so data reporting and being able to put the highest threshold of what pharma wants and what the payers want, and what the hub programs want within a platform where it's not driven by what dispensing platform you need and can still put out the data on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. It's really helped a lot of our pharmacies and a lot of our clients get to that next level, get access, and say, yes, we can do this, where that would have been a precluding issue for them in the past. If they can't provide it on themselves, we'll be able to kind of complement what they do and make sure that the data goes out to the partners in the right way. So yeah, we've got a team of analysts and chemists and things like that really understand the way of why the data is important, and we qualify that before it gets put out to the partners that require it.
Yeah, it makes sense, Vic. And of course, I would imagine in this industry, accreditation is very important. Credentialing, I'll call it, where, man, there's probably a lot of that going on. And you can't walk into a pharmacy or work with a healthcare professional without knowing in your mind that they've been accredited, they've been credentialed, they've sort of been vetted, I guess you could call it. How does Sphinx help with that as well?
Sure. I'm glad you asked. Accreditations are our bread and butter. We started Sphinx really by doing a lot of these accreditation programs for a lot of health systems, a lot of integrated development, delivery networks across the nation. And accreditation is really the first step in the process. If pharma, PBMs, payers, health plans really want to make sure that whoever they're adding into their network is of quality. So we're very proud to be strategic partners with ACHC. We've been one of the first 4 URAC accredited specialty pharmacies out there. So we really grew with both of the accrediting organizations. Remember, back when specialty was just being able to be spelled as a $60 billion industry, and now really going over 10 times growth, and now really the only new drugs that are being produced by pharma are specialty medications, very high kilodalton, very hard to handle medications, accreditation is paramount. And so that's really that's step one in our process, to make sure that the operation is following, our policies and procedures, our workflows, our processes, and those data and quality elements to make sure that they are tracking their inventory the right way, to make sure that the clinicians are having the right touch points and those right data elements within that continuum. And so accreditation really offers that first batch of approval. It offers your seat at the table. Pharma and a lot of these groups won't even talk to folks, before they have their accreditation. So it's almost a requirement to, be part of the Spring network. You have to, either follow our process on accreditations or hold multiple accreditations to be able to even qualify for our program. So it's a badge of excellence, but it's also a rite of passage.
That's really interesting, Vic. And of course, you've built a great team. One of the things that you've been able to do is really surround yourself with talented people that really get the job done. So let's talk about the team a little bit. How important is the team at Sphinx, and how important are they to help Sphinx accomplish its goal of becoming the most trusted independent specialty pharmacy in the nation?
Absolutely. No, that's a great question, Andy. So again, like you said, I'm very proud of the great team that we've built. We've got a team of clinicians across the nation. So pharmacists, nurses, technicians, scientists, analysts, technical writers that are spread across the nation. And 80% of our leadership team is ACHC certified consultants. So going back to your question on accreditation and quality, why that's so important is because we know that everyone is on the same path for understanding how important quality is, how important compliance is. We've recently expanded our contracting and our trade relations group, so we're very happy to have some folks that come from years of experience working with pharma, years of experience being IT leaders within the hospital systems themselves. And they all kind of get it. So the wonderful thing about how we keep those high performers together is making sure that everyone jumps on the calls, and that all of our clients get the full access to that team on every call or when needed. We've got also some VPs of sales from very large, publicly traded companies that have joined our team, and so being aligned on the mission is so crucial and so important. And I think that's what really differentiates us from the rest of the groups out there. But I couldn't be prouder of them. I couldn't be happier with the team that I've got today, and we're really looking to expand it more. So I think that's we're really proud of Sphinx. Sphinx was carved out of one rock, so I feel like that's something that the team gets, and they know that they have to provide that value prop to the clients.
Yeah, I love it, Vic. And of course, you from watching the show, we talk about the business within a business. Of course, there's the business of selling your product, making your customers happy, making your clients happy. And then there's all the things that happen, the business part of it, like the management and the operations, and how do you monitor your targets, and how do you access reports, and what tools do you use and tactics to build out your operations. And you have a program called Temple. Let's talk about that, because that's very unique as well in your offering.
Sure, absolutely. So we try to be as proactive as we can within all of our approaches, which goes back to what you're mentioning about the bleeding edge. Being reactive in this space is something that happens all the time, but you want to be able to be partnered with the medications, with the pharma groups, with the wholesalers up front before a medication comes out. And so what Temple really does is track all those new approvals and make sure that we're providing that information with those ROIs and with what that potential would be to the market right up front to our clients and to the ones who want to acquire the product. One of the reasons why I started Sphinx was that this one molecule called VX809 back that I identified in phase 1 was the highest NPV molecule in the entire pharmaceutical pipeline. And I remembered that back in my academic days at IU, I identified that and said, "Hey, this product with the group I was working with could really revolutionize cystic fibrosis." And so when I saw that molecule kind of pop up on almost 10 years later on a report that said this is the highest NPV molecule, it really helped catalyze my decision to start Sphinx because that is one of the cystic fibrosis molecules out there that really revolutionized the way that patients were being handled. So again, being proactive, and our Temple solution really tracks the pipeline molecules, and we provide that back to our clients. In terms of keeping them proactive, if they're the best of the best in immunology or neurology, they should be tracking the medications and the pharma activity that's happening before those medications get launched. So once the medication is approved, everyone's ready to go. And so being able to work with the pharmacies, the pharmaceutical manufacturers, as well as those hub programs to be able to say, our folks are ready, here's how easy we're going to make it on the patients. We've got everything lined up for them. It goes a really long way to drive that stickiness. So I think, yes, analysis plays a huge role in that, and having our team of chemists and analysts oversee that process really differentiates us from the rest of the folks that provide those types of solutions to the market. We're not just Wall Street, people that control, publicly available information. We're actually having, people that have put their hand on the products or those systems in the labs themselves qualify whether or not this is going to work. So it really tells us ahead of time what those issues may be even before the product may launch.
Yeah, it's interesting. What's the first call sound like? You have somebody that calls you, "Hey, Vic, we've heard about Sphinx Strategies. We want to talk. We want to, increase our, bottom line, increase our ROI. We heard about what you've been able to do with other companies." What's the first call? What's their biggest pain point? Why are they calling you? Yeah.
Sure. No, that's a great question. And I think it's morphed a little bit. Usually it's been, "Hey guys, we have an accreditation issue, or we've got, these surveyors showing up in a week and we need you," right? So we have to drop whatever we do and go and make sure that we build out their policies, procedures, and train and make sure everything's ready to go within a short period of time. So a lot of times we're called in almost like the wolf from the Pulp Fiction, if you remember Harvey Keitel. So we've only built this company through word of mouth. We've done very limited marketing, outside of the conferences. So people have gotten to know us as someone that can really fix some of their issues that they just don't have time to fix. But the first call generally goes around either operations or business development. So they either need to expand their footprint, they need better access, better pricing, better contracts. Or they focus on, "Hey, we need this, we've got this surveyor walking in next week, and, we heard you can make miracles happen. So, we show up with our team and make sure that everyone's trained, everyone's confident, everyone's concise on the updated or their current process to make sure that that they can pass through that eye of the needle."
Yeah, it makes sense. We talk about gross revenue. We talk about gross margins, net margins. Every additional 0.1% or 1% of net margin you can add in an ROI approach really makes sense for companies, especially in this particular space. Vic, before I let you go, I know we've only cut out a certain amount of time. I want to get into entrepreneurship just a little bit. We have some younger entrepreneurs watching the show. You've been at this for a while. You've become an expert in the field. You're a go-to strategist, of course, and consultant. For the younger entrepreneurs watching the show, Vic, let's give them a little feedback. Like, what do they do when they hit a rough patch? What do they do when they freeze in the frame a little bit? What do they do when they're starting to get a little questionable about their business and maybe they freak out a little bit?
Well, tenacity is very, very important. And I think I did 4 startups before I was going into grad school, and we've consulted on over 200. We've done some national venture capital competitions. We talk to, private equity companies all the time, venture capital companies all the time, do fundraising, and we see it all. So one, tenacity and being able to adapt is very, very important. I think there's one, there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there, and so what I would caution a lot of people that think that it's something that is an easy walk and they're easy to, get flustered is something I would caution them about. I would focus the effort on entrepreneurship into being ready to fix challenges and have a new challenge every day. I'm a huge fan of video games. I've hired some of my team from video games, especially throughout the COVID time. So, if I can be spared a quick analogy, in video games, if you're going to be fighting harder enemies as you go through, that means you're on the right path. So tenacity is very, very important. You can do all the planning, financial models, and make sure that everything's ready to go. But there's always going to be something. The market will always shift. There's always going to be a new pressure. There's always going to be a new disruption. Staying close to your value prop, being very, very clear and simple on a value prop is very important. And so that's what's been very successful for Sphinx, is that we know that our clients can depend on us for anything. And we will not ever give that up. If there's a challenge and your team is saying, "Oh, this is too much, it's not really a challenge. There's an opportunity to say, why is it that way? How can we pivot into how to make that a different where? Can we build out a different revenue line? Is this something that is a common denominator across all of our clients?" So, I think reactions are very easy to do when you're stressed, and the entrepreneur's path is always very stressful. But if you can focus on that blood pressure low, quality high, and keep innovation as core part of your culture, there's only success in your future. Just don't be afraid to kind of take some of the punches on the chin, and be able to learn from those. Good entrepreneurs will always pivot.
I love it. Great advice from Vic Simianu, fantastic CEO of Sphinx Strategies. The value proposition is there. The unique selling proposition is there. Your mission is very solid to really become the nation's most trusted independent specialty pharmacy consulting group by creating incredible value for your clients. The ROIs are unstoppable. Your phone's ringing off the hook, as I know from our brief call yesterday. I mean, you were really working it and talking to a lot of people, and I love that so much. So I want to thank you so much for coming on the DotCom Magazine Business Spotlight Series today, Vic. It's been great.
Thank you so much, Andy. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks.